Alright, guys, welcome to another episode of the Anything But Everything podcast. I thank you, everyone who's tuning in. Once again, if you are a subscriber or you do view the podcast, I want to thank you all. Thank you so much for being loyal subscribers and viewers on the channel. I am back here today with another episode. Before I get into it, again, if some of you are still in the dark about what this episode is all about, basically this podcast is with the sole intention for anyone who might have anxiety, stress, depression, repetitive thoughts, and the whole intention of the podcast is to provide some comfort zone, some type of closure, to bring awareness, to help people out, let them know that they're not the only ones who go through, anxiety or any of these repetition of thoughts. I've also had full disclosures on certain episodes where I've stated that no one who appears on the podcast is a professionally trained shrink, psychologist, or therapist. However, it is very much real people who have gone through experiences in life who are here to share them today and bring awareness to what anxiety is and that there is a way to get past it. So I have one of my good buddies here today. We are here to talk about, once again, another part of anxiety, because it's a very dynamic thing. It's a very complex thing. And before we get started, I know some people ask, is it really a real thing? And yes, it is very much a real thing. It takes some time to discover what it is, what it means, and how it works. But once you discover that, you do realize that it's such a beautiful thing when you can point out thinking patterns and make yourself so much better as a person and learn and grow. And my guest today and I are going to talk about that. But in particular today, we're going to talk about sometimes when you have to take a very big step to reduce the anxiety or get yourself away from something that might be triggering you more than you might think that it is. So I'm here today with my very good buddy, very good friend. I've known the guy for a while. We've had our ups, we've had our downs. We've worked with each other. We still remain very good friends. We keep in touch. His name is Jaime. And Jaime, how you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me, Sean.
Absolutely. So going back to when you and I met. So you and I used to work in the same place. It was retail, and at first when I saw you, I knew that you were someone who had a very long tenure at that store. You had been there for a while, but if dare I say that it seemed like right around the time when I met you that it had come to a point where this store, this occupation, this job was very much getting to you. It was very much kind of conflicting with your everyday life. So when I first started working in this retail company, it was back in 2007.
I went back when I was 21, 22, have always had this thing of like, just like any other 21, 22-year-old has, this whole stigmatism of an ego that I'm the best. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. Don't tell me what to do. If you don't like what I have to say, like F you or whatever, you know what I mean? And because of that, it never went really well for me. It went in a sense where it kind of developed a reputation of me being the oversensitive, angry, disgruntled employee. But through that time, I've done so much for the company where I've shown that through my anger, through my sensitivity, through wearing my emotions on my sleeve, that I have heart, that I have dedication, that I have push. But as the final few years that I've worked there have come along, and I think this is along the time that you came in as well.
Right.
At this rate, I'm already older, and I'm seeing people younger than me. I'm seeing what I used to be.
Right.
That whole, the world is mine, I do whatever I want. And I've grown up from that, and like I've seen what it is. It's like that's not how life is. You have to earn your respect. You have to pay your dues. You have to do what you have to do. I think what it is that started driving, because I don't think I've ever had or felt anxiety when I was younger. I think I started feeling it as I was getting older. Maybe we could say like 28, 29. But
this was the moment where you just discovered that you had it?
That I maybe like before that I was starting to get it, or that I was starting to feel
to see what it is.
Yeah, because I would see people older than me or people around me that are younger with anxiety, and I'm like, just get over it. Just let it go. But then when it starts happening to you, it's like, okay, it's not as easy. to let go of something. It's not as easy to just brush something off because honestly, you start feeling these things where you don't feel like you have control of a situation, and your brain starts like processing a lot of things all at once. You're just so confused. You don't know where to go. You don't know what the next step is, even though you're like right in front of what you should do.
Yeah.
Like, I've had moments at where we used to work where I would come in, or not even come in, I'd be in the parking lot. I would sit in my car and I would stare at the place and I'd be like, do I really want to go inside? Or do I just want to turn on my car and go home?
Drive back, yeah.
And obviously I had things telling me like, no, you have to go to work. You have to pay your bills. You have to earn money. You have to have a living, you know?
Yeah.
You can't just not work, even though you can have like a way of having an extra income or whatever.
Well, let me stop you at this point because I feel like now I can kind of meet you midway. So I think maybe roughly around that time when you were discovering what anxiety was, that's around the time when I kind of came into the fold. And you know, around that time when I came in and kind of joined you guys, you know, in the fold, you know, we kind of had like that slow start where we didn't really know each other, but just through, you know, common passions and just conversation, we got to know each other. And like I said in the beginning, I don't think we should hide away from it. We had our ups, we had our moment of downs, no doubt, where there was not, you know, an argument or something happened. But at the end of the day, we kind of just patched it up. But, you know, some people might ask, okay, we're going on with this. What is our intention? The fact that, you know, in a place like retail, anxiety, it's a very anxiety-provoking place. Simply because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with management. There are some people who you're not going to gel with very well. Sometimes customers over the smallest thing will get mad at you. They'll give you attitude. They'll get aggressive. They'll get confrontational. And all of that, it kind of stacks up as time goes on. You may not realize it. Some people might think that, oh, I can just brush it off and it should be fine. But it's so funny because I kind of had that same moment that you did. You know, it was, I think, in the last month where even before driving and looking at the building, it was the whole process of putting my gear on. And I would think to myself, why am I even putting this shirt on? Like, don't do it, you know, stop it. And I went back and forth and I thought to myself, I need to get away from this place. I don't think 2 or 3 months sabbatical is going to get the job done. I need to permanently step away. I need to move on to the next adventure in life. So I finally came to a point where I said, I need to stop getting opinions. I need to do what's best for me, because one of the guys that actually told me this on my way out, he said, because I told him, I said, I'm very much afraid of not reporting to work anymore because of bills and financial obligations. And he told me, he said, look, when you think about financial obligations, it's fine because you will always find a way to solve them. You'll borrow from a friend, you'll get a loan, you know, there is a way to go about it. However, the time that you spend destroying this, and he pointed to his head, he's like, the time when you spend destroying your brain, you will never get that time back, ever. So our whole intention here is to just, you know, rely the fact that, you know, if there is something that you feel like might be triggering you, whether it's work or school, or if it's a particular location, or if it's somewhere that you go to on a daily basis, you know, you might want to be a little bit more careful, because you may not realize it, but it might be more of a trigger than you think that it is, you know. And I certainly had to take that big step where I said, okay, I need to stop. I need to move on to the next phase in life. So it was at this point where you said, you know, you were in your car and you were already having doubts. So where did that build up lead to? Where was it when you said after 10 years, and that's a very long time to be at a certain tenure, what was that final step of saying, I need to get away, I need to not do this anymore?
As of last July, when I hit the 10-year mark and I was starting year 11. 10 years already is just like a big thing of like, wow, you've been here so long, you should be a manager, you should be in charge.
Especially in retail.
I think because it felt like, what am I still doing here? I'm now 31. I'm not the 21-year-old who was irresponsible, didn't care if he was not coming to work, you know. I became a 31-year-old man who has bills, has car payments, has rent payments, has all these things to worry about. And it's like, I'm not showing progress. Even though a lot of people are telling me, like, yeah, you live on your own now. You don't live at home with your parents. You know, you're taking care of yourself, or at least trying to. And in my head, it's like, that's not enough. Like, I don't feel like I've moved in life.
Right.
And that started triggering the anxiety where it's like, what am I doing here? What am I still, like, dealing with? In other words, you know? And it's like, am I going to stay here? And then the pressure sometimes of not making enough money that I had to seek a second job while doing this job had also gotten to me. So it's like, where do I have time to sleep? Where do I have time to enjoy a day off? Where do I have time to do something for myself, you know? And then I think by the beginning of this year, back in January, after my birthday, after I'd taken many a weekends off to enjoy some time for myself, being back in February, like, something hit where everybody could see it, even you saw it, where it's like, I'm not happy. I'm in a state of mind where I'm tricking myself every morning when I wake up that, oh, it's going to be a better day. It's going to be a good day.
Because it's like you said, it's one of those things where, you know, life outside of work was going forward, but you consistently kept on reporting back to the same place that you've been at for 10 years. And when you do that, you kind of, it's like you take yourself back. I mean, did it seem that way where it was like, yeah, everything is kind of going forward, but I keep on coming back to this one place? Was it ever like that?
I wouldn't say it was exactly like that, but it felt like I was coming to the same place, but doing the same thing and not feeling like, oh, I'm coming to the same place, but I have a new title or a new obligation to worry about. No, it was the same thing, and it never changed, and it just got to me because it's like the micromanagement, the lack of change, the whole tricking myself that everything is okay when it really wasn't. All of that was just building and building and building up, where it's just like a lot of people saw it, you know, and like honestly, I got scared. I got scared for myself or anyone who's been in my position, because it's like, at one point, and I hate how this quote comes from like one of my favorite like comic book series to read. All it takes is one bad day. Just one bad day. And I felt scared. Because what if that bad day already came? Or what if that bad day was coming? And it just got really scary. It got really intense that, like, I had more than just you or a couple other former coworkers of ours tell me that I'm not okay, that we're really worried about you. I've had my other friends who do podcasts tell me. I had my girlfriend tell me, and I guess some of the family members of her family, since I'm so close to them, they were scared to want to tell me that you need to get out, you need change, because they feel either they wouldn't know how I would handle what they had to say to me, or they were worried that much about me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the harder part, when you have other people starting to worry about you, even though they try to like be like, yeah, you know, you're good, you're okay, but they can see it.
Yeah.
And they want to help, but they're afraid because they feel like they might do something to either hurt your feelings or trigger you.
Yeah.
And you never know what can happen.
So, getting all this from family members, friends, coworkers. So what happened? Where was that big point of finally taking that big step? What did you have to tell yourself? What did you have to do?
So I had already had the plan set that I was going to leave this company by my 11th year anniversary, which was supposed to be in July. But because all the buildup was coming, and that it took like my podcast friends, it took them to trick me like, oh, we're gonna do an episode, we're gonna record, and I show up, there's no equipment out. It's literally just like, this is us talking to you.
Yeah.
We need to talk.
Intervention.
Yeah. It took that intervention. It took an intervention from some of our coworkers where I sat in the back and I talked to them, and I just, like, everything they kept asking me led me to just break down, to just cry. And I think because of those two things, and like the fact that I already had a second job, that the income is a lot easier to attain just as long as I push myself, I think it was at that moment I was just like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Or I'm either going to go insane, I'm going to do harm to myself, which I don't want to do, or I'm going to harm someone I care about. And I never want that to happen. I don't ever want anything bad to happen to anyone because of me or because of my actions. So I took a leap of faith. I had to walk into an office and tell the person in charge of hiring and all that, like, hey, I'm sorry. This is not how I want to do this, but I think it's time. Even though I had this planned out for the end of July.
Yeah.
Just to make it like a full 11 years.
Yeah.
I think I needed the jump start now, because God forbid something happens to me.
And once you told the person in charge that, hey, it's time, I need to do this, was there an instant feeling of relief? Was there emotion, or was it just...
So at first, because it's a 2-week notice, obviously.
Yeah.
The first week felt like, I told them. I still have to report here.
Right.
But not much responsibility is on my shoulders now.
Yeah.
It's like I can kind of start letting go.
Yeah.
And it felt okay at first. It felt like, whatever. But then when the final few shifts come, the few days, it started to change. It's like, oh my God.
What's going on?
It's starting to happen. In a few days, I won't have to ever come back here. I won't ever have to really put up with this like feeling of anxiousness or of anger. I'm gonna be free. Sometimes it felt like a celebration. It felt like a rejuvenation. Other days or times it would feel like, am I doing the right thing? I still ask myself that right now. Yeah. Did I do the right thing? It feels like, is this gonna be a mistake I'm gonna regret soon or later, you know? But as those days were coming, it started to also give me this feeling of like, I'm gonna be okay. I'm not feeling as stressed out as I used to be. I'm not feeling as unhappy as I used to be. I'm starting to actually feel like a weight off my shoulders, and I'm sure you felt that same feeling as well.
Yeah, it was very much a questionable phase at first when it happened, but then when you kind of start feeling the whole thing of, I don't have to report here anymore, I don't have to deal with all the greedy attitude from, whoever I got to deal with. It's like slowly your brain kind of puts the dots together, and it's like, okay, I no longer have to come here. I no longer have to subject myself to this. But the one very remarkable thing is that I didn't realize how much of a trigger work was until I got out of it. It's like the whole before and after thing, where it's like, because you're always reporting, you're always going there on a daily, weekly basis, you don't feel it, because I used to think that work shouldn't be too much of a trigger. It's probably a very little trigger that is not significant. But once I got out of there, I realized that, oh my gosh, it's actually a much more bigger trigger. I didn't even realize it because I didn't give it that time to sit there and process it. And, we're not sitting here and, to anyone who's listening, we're not sitting here and saying, quit school, quit your job, quit whatever you're doing. Just sit at home and, the solutions will all come to you.
Don't ever do any of that. No.
Yeah. It's just sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. People would ask me all the time when I was getting out of there, what are you going to do now? When I told them, I don't know. I'm getting into a state of uncertainty, but the funny thing is I kind of like it. I kind of want to be in there because I don't want to go back to, where I was before. going in there on a daily basis, getting triggered, feeling anxious, being on my toes all the time. And you have to find a way to kind of deal with that dilemma. You have to negotiate with yourself, find something reasonable, meet yourself in the middle. So now I want to ask you, now that that chapter has come to an end, right now at this moment, would you say that you feel like you're going on a path where it feels like I did the right thing, I'm just moving forward? Or is it like, there might be some sign of regret here later?
I think right now it's a little of both, or it's a little bit of everything. Because I'm starting to see what it is affecting me money wise. Just because it's like I have to push myself in the new line of work that I'm in. That part of it is the part where it's like I know I have to push myself every day to like just go earn my earnings. Which makes me feel like, am I gonna regret this soon or later or whatever, or a few weeks, few months, years maybe. Another thing, it feels like I said, it's a weight lifted off of me. It's like I can wake up and I feel so much better that my brain can process like, oh, I can go do this today. I can go do that today. I can go finally work on the simplest of things of cleaning my room, or organizing my closet, or organizing my stuff, or going to see a movie I haven't been able to see because it's been in theaters and everyone's already seen it before me, or go take a drive somewhere.
Very small things. It doesn't even have to be a big thing.
And those small things turn into like, okay, I've done this and this. I have time to go to school now. I have time to actually think of what I want to do with myself through school, or because of the experience I've gathered through years and years and years of working somewhere, I can use that if I really want to have another job. And like, maybe they won't hire me due to ageism or whatever, but I feel like there's nothing stopping me. Like, my potential and limit is limitless. I shouldn't have to worry. I should feel like this is an opportunity to discover who I am now from what I've been for the last 10 and a half years. Because I feel like being in such a place for so long, you kind of like come to tell yourself that, oh, you're this person, this is who you are, this is all you're ever going to be. No, I'm not going to be that type of person. I'm going to be something bigger, or I'm going to be something that does something for a lot of people. I can be anything, and I feel that confidence now that I didn't feel before.
I heard this somewhere. One thing that I would always keep in the back of my head was, as it pertains to work. I heard someone say, you have two options. You can either stay and be miserable, or you can leave and feel happy. And it's just so ironic how sometimes very simple quotes like that can say so much. I feel like quotes need to have their moment, their time. It has to be at the right time where you hear things. I've also heard before that if you don't like the world you're living in, you have to change it. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And that's one of the big ways to change it, as I'm sure maybe some people are wondering, is once again taking that big step. Sometimes it's a risk, sometimes it's uncertainty, sometimes it's reporting to some place that you go on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and you don't realize how much it's maybe bringing you down as opposed to bringing you up. And sometimes, if necessary, you need to take that step and say, okay, maybe not permanently, but maybe I need to just separate myself from whatever this activity is, whatever this place. I need to separate myself and see how I feel within maybe a couple months' time. If it's still the same, then okay, maybe this place is not too much of a trigger. But if you do feel somewhat of a difference, hey, maybe it's time to, step away, try something else, try a new endeavor. So now for everyone who's listening, what would be your big piece of advice? And it doesn't even have to be, quitting a job. It could be buying a house. It could be getting a new car. It could be getting into a relationship. Or, what would be your biggest piece of advice when it comes to taking big steps like that? Because there is a way to do things. There is an execution of how to do things. What would be your biggest advice to anyone who's listening who might need to take that big step, or thinks to themselves, I need to take a big step, I just don't know how?
My piece of advice to whoever's listening to this would be, don't think that the decision you make is a bad one. Never think of it like that. Think as rational as you can. Like, really take time, and if you have everything lined up how you think it'll work, there will be hiccups. Believe me, there will be. But if you feel like this is the right thing to do, don't hesitate. Just jump into it. Don't stop yourself, because if you do stop now, you're never going to find out what it could have been.
Right.
That's my advice.
You know, it's I just recalled, you know, as once again while I was out the door, you know, it's one of those things where I kept on telling myself, if you follow what your heart is telling you, you can never be wrong. Because if your heart at a certain point, or your brain or your mind or just your entire body as a whole is telling you something, don't do this, step away from this, you know, if you ever look back, you can't say, well, I was wrong, because at that moment, that's what was in your heart. That's what you were feeling. That's what you were absorbing. And you can never be wrong in moments like that. Yes, if you go the other way, it's kind of like one of those deals where, okay, you know, I had a gut feeling, I went the other direction, things didn't work out. But personally, it's when you're at a moment where you're in between a rock and a hard place, and you need to make a decision. Your heart says go here, or your brain says do this, or you just feel like I need to do this. You can never be wrong. Yes, it's like you said, there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be bumps, there's going to be bruises along the way, but it's just all a part of the process of taking that big step and, you know, bringing some change into your life, into your world. So, once again, Jaime, I want to thank you for sharing your experience with us. I feel that some people, they might be in that same situation, maybe not for 10 years, but maybe it's been for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, where you're just...
Or even 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah,
it could be anything.
It could be anything. It doesn't even have to be work. If you feel like you're reporting to a place, or you're going somewhere, or you're doing an activity that you feel like after you do it, you feel stressed out, it's anxiety provoking, take a time to step away from it, see how you feel, assess it logically, ask yourself what is going on, dissect it. And by doing that, you will find that sometimes you can stop yourself from going into things, or, you know, being around, you know, something that might be, you know, triggering you. So once again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That concludes this episode of the Anything But Everything podcast, and we'll see you all next time.